Hey folks, I'm going to show you how to make your own DIY Halloween masks with a caveat. Check it out. I feel like the latex Halloween mask has been a fixture of the horror, film, and also Halloween fanatic culture in modern times. I wanted to make my own, and so I started by trying to figure out what the easiest way and most inexpensive way would be to build a form on which to sculpt. If you watch other tutorials, they will likely use a plaster bust, and I don't discourage you from doing that. I just feel as though I didn't have the patience and time and materials to cast my own head. And unfortunately, my head's too big to use a standard head form. So I started creating this out of some materials I had. I used some sculpting mesh to create something that would be the dimensions of my head. I covered that in a layer of plaster bandage, and here I filled it with foam. Now, this is not going to give you as heavy a bust to work off of as you would if you did it in plaster, but it actually saved me in the end, and I'll explain. So I started sculpting with monster clay. This is an oil-based clay. You can heat it in the microwave or the oven, or even with a heat gun, and then it becomes sculptable. It becomes very rigid after it cools, and you can get some really nice details. I have a couple of old sculpting tools that I use, but really you could use anything from a popsicle stick to just your hands. And once you have it all finished, you have to seal it to keep the plaster that you're going to create the mold with from sticking to it. So I covered it in a layer of clear coat, Krylon, you can see it there. But some people use even things like spray paint. And you want to also keep the plaster from sticking to your board. So I used a little bit of Vaseline and started mixing my Ultra Cal plaster in preparation to make our mold. You want to really try to mix it gently to try to keep any additional air bubbles out. And that's also why I take this brush and brush into the very small crevices to try to eliminate any air pockets that possibly could be under there. This will set up pretty quickly, and it took me 2 batches to get the entire mold smooth. And this is where I kind of got into trouble because my sculpture did not go all the way to the project board, and I created a plaster flange underneath the project that had to be removed before I could take out my head form. Unfortunately, that also destroyed the head form in the process. But the mold came out great, and I'll be able to use this to cast to cast more than one mask. Once your mold is entirely clean, you can fill it with latex. It has to be casting latex. Allow that to rest for about an hour and then dump it back into the bucket. Let that cure overnight and you have a mask. The flashing needs to be cut away, and that's going to be part of the next video, as well as potentially some hair and some paint. I hope I made this process a little bit more approachable, and maybe you'll give it a try. If you enjoy this sort of thing, please follow along, ask any questions you might have, and happy haunting.